Here's my idea for the week. I think that couples only have one fight. It might be refracted through the three areas that Esther Perel talked about. She said that couples only fight about three things: power, love and care, and recognition and acknowledgement. But what I found is that actually, if you go really deep, usually couples have one major point of contention that they get into that feels intractable, that feels impossible. And even if you're talking about like, oh, you don't ask me how I'm doing at the end of the day, or you're possessive or something like that, when you really, really get down to it, at that one central point of conflict that couples will come back to over and over again, they're generally fighting about one thing. My friend Arakai Moon, who's fucking brilliant, shout out Arakai, she calls this the eclipse, because there's gonna be this one place in the life of a couple where like the sun, the moon, and the earth all line up. And she has this really intricate map for what that is, but it's kind of like the person's trauma and personal history and all of the stories and defense mechanisms that they've built around that, and all of their high dream and their deepest desires and all of the pain they felt for not having that and all of their drive to achieve that are gonna line up intricately and perfectly choreographed with the other person's. And it's gonna seem like it's either my world or your world. And you can tell that you're getting really close to an eclipse because of the intensity of the energy. Like it just feels like all of the worst things are happening. Like you're in a fucking nightmare and you're trapped there forever. And you can tell you're in an eclipse because all of your accusations for each other start to be the same. It's like, there's no room for me. There's no room for me. You never listen. You never listen. And I think the reason why it feels so intense, and I think the reason why so many fights come back to this, is because actually what you're fighting for is for your high dream. What you're fighting for is the ability to live your deepest spiritual path. Like in a fucking for real way. It feels like life or death because it is life or death. Because somehow you've gotten into this place in your relationship where it feels like your relationship is preventing you from living your true purpose, the reason why you came to this earth, for your spiritual truth, for the depth and actualization of your path. So even if it's like, you never listen to me, even if it's like, you're too possessive, the reason why those things bother you, when you get down to it, to the truth of it, it's because you're looking for your relationship to either be the place where you get to actualize your spiritual path, or to be in an environment that supports your spiritual flowering. So if you're finding yourself in this situation where there's just like three things that are bothering you about someone, collapse it down to that one thing. What is the one thing that is bothering you? What is the one thing that feels like it's not happening in the relationship? And see, how does this one thing that is not happening in the relationship, that I'm not getting from this environment, that I'm not getting from the other person, how do I feel like it is preventing my ability to follow my spiritual path, to flower that deepest part of myself? And maybe, I almost want to say I promise you, but I don't feel that. But there might be something there, because it might feel like you need the support of your relationship in order to truly follow your path, in order to actualize that deepest need of yours. And I think we play it out in our relationships on an interpersonal level. But if you drop down, it's really on a spirit level. And if you can get to that spirit level of what you're really looking for, then things become very clear. Because it's not for another person to bloom your flower. It is for you to choose environments that support you to surrender to the flower that you are, that support you to surrender and allow the spiritual path that wants to come through you to happen. So the only way out of this intractable conflict is to marry your own path. Because we get into all of this sort of built up resentments and tit for tat on an interpersonal level. But when you really drop down to your spirit level, things become very clear. Shit becomes very obvious, right? It is, what do you need to do if you marry your spiritual path to put yourself in an environment that supports that? And what can you do to meet those needs? And then number two, does your spiritual path align with the other person's spiritual path? And does supporting you in the way that you're seeking your relationship to support your path genuinely serve their path? Are your paths aligned? Is there natural resonance there? We're being in that deepening process of intimacy. We're engaging in maybe those sort of altered states or trance-like states or sexual unfoldings. Does it match the other person? Not in terms of something that they would do for you, but in terms of something we're showing up for that is genuinely in service to their path too. And from that place of awareness, from that place of depth, it's either yes or no. And all of those other things on the interpersonal level can work themselves out if you get a yes to each other and the type of environment that you want to create on a spirit level, on a soul level. Because in that place, you're aligned or you're not. And it can be hard to see and it can be hard to admit. But if you are aligned, then you are going to get a deep yes from them for the things that you're asking for. And I really feel like if you are being met and if you are in an environment that serves your spiritual process at that depth place, then a lot of those interpersonal things about the dishes, about being late, about who says what and how they respond to what will fall away, because that deep spiritual need is being served. And when you get into those places that feel like intractable conflict, you can go back to that place where at the deepest level, you guys have a yes to each other, to be walking a path that is in natural harmony together. It's like relationships are a place where a lot of us go looking for the fulfillment of our spiritual paths because it has to do with love and sex and transcendence. A lot of us are seeking part of the actualization of our deepest places in our intimate relationships. And so we have to make sure that those relationships are truly serving that purpose. And to be really real with ourselves about whether the purpose that we're seeking aligns with the people that we've chosen to actualize them with. These can be hard questions, but I feel like in a certain way, these questions aren't up to us. That we are in service to something greater. And that all we can do is to surrender to that something greater, to be in service to it, to the best of our abilities.